Now let us begin the class. I hope you have gone through the slides which I asked you to go through yesterday. And you must be having some questions in your mind. Please seek the clarification of those and then I'll move on. Have you gone through the slides? And if you have you understood the calculations and everything, every text which is mentioned on the slides? If you have understood, I have no option. I can go on to the next slide and can complete the discussion. Up to this, we have discussed. This is the last slide in 4th unit. Hypothesis, implications of arbitrage process. It was explained to you yesterday verbally. Now is available in the form of a slide also. When a shareholder exercises arbitrage process, he gets same return with less risk. When we say same return, calculations were shown. Rupees 85 was his return before and rupees 85 was his return now also. So he is getting same return. Then with less risk. Why less risk? Because he is buying shares in a firm which is not levered, which does not have debt. So naturally it is less riskier. So recall some discussion of unit number 1, risk and return. Higher is the risk, higher is the return. In the present situation, if you are getting same return with less risk, it is desirable. So naturally, it will be a better situation with risk, with same return but no risk. Then as the above situation is better situation, many other shareholders will also like to follow the arbitrage process. What will happen? It will lead to more sales of shares in a levered firm and more purchase of shares in unlevered firm. And as a simple law of economics, this would result in fall in the share price of levered firm and increase in the share price of unlevered firm. A time will come when the share of both these firms will command the same price, same market price. So this is a situation of equilibrium. And if the process continued, levered firm will have lesser price compared to more price compared to unlevered firm. The above steps prove that levered firm cannot command higher valuation only because of a different debt equity ratio. All said and done, another important thing, very, very important thing, that had this been so easy that the people would have changed the market valuation merely on the basis of debt equity ratio, then everybody would have followed this thing. Yesterday also I told you, if an investment proposal sounds very, very attractive without any risk, that means there is some trap. Somebody wants to trap the innocent investors. Because nowhere in the life, be it a financial decision, be it an HR decision, be it a personal decision of your life, be it anything, things do not come easy in the life. It is a thumb rule, it is a golden principle. If somebody says that he will do wonders with least efforts, just impossible. Temporarily one can do, but at a later stage, he is bound to fail. Because nature follows its own course and which is natural. So merely by saying that I promise you 30-40% return with no risk, is there anything? Everybody will do that only. So this too also needs to be analyzed, needs to be seen very carefully. Several of you might be receiving, mails from unknown persons saying that I have good business proposal, this amount has been credited, invoice is there. I mean, lot of catchy, lot of attractive text emails are sent. So do you think it is so easy in the world that people will offer you, and why you or me or anybody? These are all things which in disguise wish to rob the investors or innocent people. Same is true with all the decisions, including financial decisions. So one should ensure that whatever is being done stands the test of all possible analysis, and then only a decision can be taken. So have proved that it is not simply the capital structure or a financial leverage which determines the fate of an organization. It is the hard work, the systematic this thing that companies do, and then only it is decided. People are still asking me to let them in. I don't know why it is happening, because I don't see any pending request with them. All right. Now this hypothesis, which they have proved, seems to be reasonable, but anyhow, their hypothesis is based on certain assumptions. I'll discuss those assumptions now. The assumptions are: first assumption is that they consider or they assume that capital market is perfect. You have already studied economics paper in either your this in MBA first semester. You understand the meaning of a perfect market. I'm not talking perfect capital market. I'm only talking perfect market. What are the assumptions of perfect market? Can anybody tell the assumptions of perfect market?
Free entry and exit.
Okay, what does it mean, free entry and exit?
Anybody can enter the market. Anybody
Okay,
can shut
apply.
down.
Okay, good. Apply it in the context of capital market now. What does it mean? Is Indian capital market perfect or not? Okay, let us discuss more characteristics. Number one characteristic is free entry and free exit. If we apply in the context of capital market, that would mean anyone can buy the share and anyone can sell the share. This is what free entry, free exit means.
Yes.
What is the second characteristics of a perfect market?
More buyers.
Sorry? Say it again.
More buyers.
More buyers and more sellers. Large number of buyers and large number of sellers. Is it applicable in case of Indian capital market?
Yes, sir.
Yes, there are hundreds and millions of people who are buying and selling every day in the stock market. Good. What is the third characteristics?
So homogeneous product.
Homogeneous product. Products are same. Is this applicable? It is applicable. Yes. because different types of shares are there, but each share is unique in a sense that you buy or sell the same share. The buyers and sellers do not trade different commodities. What is the next characteristic? These are three. Fourth one, market share is market has no influence on the prices. Is this applicable?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next, what is the next characteristics? Every player in the market has access to same level of information. Another important characteristic of a perfect market is that all the players in the market, all buyers and sellers, have got same access to the information which is available. If there are 10 people, just theoretically assume if there are 10 people, each one of them knows what rest of 9 know. I know, so 10 people, serial number 1 to 10. Number 1 also knows exactly the same what 2 to 10 know. Serial number 10 also knows exactly the same what serial number 1 to 9 also know. Complete transparency in the information availability. Is it applicable in the capital market? Indian capital market?
So this may not be true always.
Okay, this may not be true. Tell me the reasons, a bit more of it. This may not. You are right. You are right in your assessment. Why is this not? Why is this cannot be true?
The big investors, they have insider information.
Not big investors. What is insider information? Explain to your classmates. What is insider's information? You are using a correct term.
Any secret information about a company, what it is planning in the future, which may affect the share price.
Okay. Okay. Good. Very good. Any other example?
Sir, like a merger or acquisition, if it is going to be held in future.
Yes. Expected merger and acquisition. Any other information? Any other example?
Sir, like annual general report coming every quarter, employees have the access of that.
Employees, especially people working in the finance department, in the accounts department, they know the kind of profitability expected. Okay. And there have been cases reported in the media, reported in the business world, wherein some people made undue money, took undue advantage illegally and made huge money, and some people suffered huge losses because somebody had access to information which was not available to everyone. Can you recall 1 or 2 cases wherein this has happened?
Harshad Mehta.
No, Harshad Mehta case was not related to the inside information. He manipulated the prices in such a way that it caused losses in the stock exchange. He artificially inflated the prices of shares. He bought them at a low prices, artificially created the hype, and then sold. So his case was not of insiders information. There are other cases which you try to see what were the cases, what happened when insiders information was available to select one. How did they manipulate the market and how it caused huge losses to ordinary investors. Here you can once again see the importance of trust in recording the accounting data and in informing the shareholders, informing all the stakeholders honestly. If somebody for a consideration informs select person, limited persons, those people will make gain. See, the owners, they know what kind of move are they going to take. Take the example of any company, let us say Mukesh Ambani. If he knows that soon he will strike a deal and a very, very attractive deal is about to be finalized with somebody which will result in huge profits, it is he or his people only know that this is going to happen. Ordinary people will not buy the shares. And if select people know information, they buy huge number of shares, and naturally they will overnight gain they will make a lot of profit overnight. But anyhow, this I was only discussing the characteristics of capital market as one of the assumptions of hypothesis. So the capital market in Indian context is perfect to this extent, but not beyond. So these are the assumptions. This is one of the assumptions of capital, the hypothesis. Secondly, they assume that there are no taxes. Taxes do not exist. Although initially they said taxes do not exist, but when they refined this hypothesis subsequently, they proved it using tax structure also, using the presence of tax also. But anyway, in the books you will find this assumption that taxes do not exist. Another assumption they made was shares can be divided into any denominations. What we say now, 10 shares of rupees 20 each, 30 shares, 40 shares, according to their assumption, one can buy 2.95 shares also, which is again not possible. And why they have assumed so? Because if you recall the example that we had yesterday, 1% stock was equal to 1.778, something like that. But anyhow, this is a theoretical assumption. Even if these assumptions are not too much realistic, but at the same time, otherwise also it is a proof that financial leverage is not the only source. Debt equity ratio is not the only way through which valuation of a firm can be manipulated, can be increased, or can be decreased. There are several market forces. Having understood the meaning of hypothesis, its illustration, its assumptions, its implications, what are the limitations of this hypothesis? Can you think some of the limitations of this hypothesis?
So some of the assumptions are
Yes,
unrealistic.
very true. Limitations.
Markets are not always realistic, so perfect.
Market will not always be perfect, especially the availability of information will not be uniform across the board. Some people will have access to very important information and some people may not have. And history is full of the cases wherein insider information was accessed at a price, people made huge gain, but at the same time landed into jail for 100 years, so till they die. So there are safeguards, but still this is a crime and punishment and all, they continue in the society. So the assumptions of this information, absence of taxes, or these are some of the things which can be constituted as limitations of hypothesis. This completes our discussion on unit number 4. Before tell me if there are some questions specifically on unit 4, and then I will summarize it. What I guess now that you left the class yesterday at what time? Around 5 o'clock? Yes. It is about 12 to 15 hours since you left the class. You are opening this presentation after 5 o'clock now only. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Honestly, out of 42 of you present here, 41 including me, 42, is there anyone who can tell me honestly that he referred to these slides from 5 p.m. yesterday till 8 a.m. today? Anyone out of 41 available here on the screen? Yes or no?
Not referred,
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
No. Okay. Okay, at least you are honest in accepting. Similarly, these how many 28 slides were provided to you on day 1? Okay, Laiba Khan is saying that she did not attend the class yesterday. How about the class attended day before yesterday? These 28 slides were provided to you in the beginning of discussion on the 4th unit. Slides pertaining to 3rd units once again provided to you 7-8 days before, actual number of days before starting the units. Did you ever refer to these slides prior to coming to the class? It has not happened. Same was true in accounting also. In that respect, I feel that there is no point in giving you anything in advance. I'll start the class, share with you 2, 3, 4, 5 slides, and that's all. Then again, I'll start the class next day, share the day's classes, 2, 3, 5, 6 classes. That's it. So after all, there is a purpose. Why should I supply you these things in advance? Even if it is a repetitive thing, each time I change whatever changes are required and then only share with you the presentation. See, the only logic was which you are not trying to take the advantage of. But how many times can I tell you? Has everybody entered the roll number in the class? If not, please enter the roll number now. I'll summarize the entire unit, a fourth unit. Can you recall fourth unit is on which decision of financial management? How many decisions do we take in financial management? How many decisions do we take? Investment decision, financing decision, dividend decision. Which decision is this?
Financing.
Financing decision. Why financing decision? Because we need to finance the project. We need to arrange finances for the project, and we are discussing which source of finance will be better, which will cost us less, which will have less risk. So the topic, the heading was cost of capital. I explained to you that how do we calculate the cost of capital, and before that we should know what are various forms of capital which are available to a company to finance its projects. Broadly, those which are based with a fixed return that you have to pay, and those which have variable return. If profit, return will be provided. If no profit, return will not be provided to the shareholders. Broadly, these were two categories. Then we started calculating cost of each type of cost, each type of capital. These are listed in your screen: debentures, preference shares, bond, loan, and like this equity, retained earning. With respect to each, I explained to you how to calculate its cost. Cost of debenture was explained. Apparently, it appeared if you are paying 10% interest with the debenture holder, your cost is 10%. But in reality, it is not, because money you are receiving today and you are paying at different years in different either installments or in one go after 5, 6, 10 years. So naturally, money received today cannot be equated with the money paid after 5 years. So we introduced the concept, we incorporated the concept of time value of money, and then calculations were made like I have shown in this slide. Then tax factor was considered, because interest paid to debenture holder, company gets tax advantage, and then it makes calculation. Just now, one more example came to my mind which I can share with you. Suppose I, as an investor, you know my age, my salary, my everything, you know, I have got two offers. One, a return of 10%, which is taxable. 10%, which is taxable. Another offer, a return of 8%, which is tax-free. 8%, which is tax-free. Which one should I accept? Tax-free or tax-free or taxable? Should I
Sir, it
accept?
depends upon the
Okay.
depends upon the amount of tax.
I have said to you that one is okay depending on the amount of tax. That is why I told you my own case. You should be able to know what kind of tax bracket I should be.
30%.
30%. Okay, good. 30%. So which option should I accept? Tax-free or taxable?
Tax-free.
Tax-free, because if I go for taxable, then 30% will go. I will be left with 7 rupees. So 8 is better than 7. How about you? If the same offer is made to you, which one will you go for? Taxable or tax-free?
Taxable.
Taxable, because you don't pay any taxes. So whatever remains, it will be yours. If the company pays you 10 rupees out of 100, so it will be yours only, because you don't pay any taxes at this stage. If I do that, that is why if you see those kind of offers, government says only applicable to the senior citizens. Means government knows that at this stage they will have higher tax bracket. So taxes are equally important in investment decision and also in calculating the cost of capital. Then KDT, that is why we calculated KDT. I explained to you the meaning of preference shares and the calculation of cost. Also, I explained to you, then the question was given, I hope you are working on, and as soon as the assignment is created, you will be able to do that. Then cost of equity was explained to you. It was a bit of more philosophical in nature, that it is about the expectations. Expectations of everyone differs. And what are the expectations? Regular dividend, increase in dividend, and appreciation in the value of a share. So we had a model known as dividend growth model. Using that model, we calculated the cost of equity. In a model, 3 figures were given, 4th we had to calculate. So any 4th can be calculated, and with the help of that one, we realized the limitations of this model. Okay, like this was the model with the information available on D, P, and G. K was calculated. Then I asked you to calculate P. If K, D, and G were available, then you realize the limitations of this model. Then some examples were given and some assignments were created. Then I asked you several questions. If you are an investor, what would you do? Look here once again. Answering a question in the examination, if you are an investor, what you do is quite easy. Similarly, answering a question in different ways on a piece of paper is easy. If I ask you to calculate 3% of 1 lakh, on paper you will calculate it is 3,000 rupees. But if I ask you to pay to somebody, take out from your pocket 20% of the money that you have in your pocket, you will count 10 times before giving. So you must realize that in your real life, in your professional life, it will not be paper and pen. It will be paper and pen, but decision will go beyond that. Somebody will actually take out money of his or her pocket. Somebody will part away his life long savings. So if we are not able to apply the real concept correctly, then how much will it cost to the individual? And how much will it cost you? It may cost you your job if you take wrong decisions continuously. Therefore, applying decisions on a piece of paper is extremely important. You apply those decisions several times so that you become master, you become authority in that one. Then only you will be able to take the decisions. Otherwise, just remember this example. If I ask you to part 20% of your money which is available in your wallet, and if it is more 10,000-15,000 rupees, you will calculate 2, 3, 4 times before giving it to somebody. But if I ask you to calculate 10% of 100 crores or 2-3% of 10,000 crores, you will calculate it. So life is not about merely a piece of paper and a pen. Real life goes beyond that, and that is possible only if repeatedly it is practiced and then decisions are taken. That is why I am asking you all these questions. Under what circumstances will you buy? When will you not buy? What are your considerations? If you simply say for the sake of saying yes or no, it doesn't matter. It has no meaning because you have not applied your mind. Apply your mind thinking as if you are actually doing. As if you are actually doing. These days, people are not, writing checks, but there are other means of, this thing available. I can recall long ago, maybe 40 years ago, I used to write checks. I was working for an organization, maybe 2.5 years I worked in the industry. So I used to write checks. Usually the checks were 100 rupees, 2,000 rupees, 1,500, something like that. This was the usual transaction that were taking place. Once it had happened that when our company had to make huge payment to somebody and a check of 2,40,000 rupees was to be written. I'm talking of something 82 or 83. I had to think several times before writing 2,40,000 in words and 2,40,000 in rupees. I'm telling you honestly. Although check would have been dishonored had there been some issues, but it was a very, very difficult situation. If someone is used to writing these checks and suddenly he is asked to write a check, although writing 10 rupees or writing 20, writing 10,000 doesn't make a difference, but I'm telling you the situation. Same thing will be applicable, and which will be possible only if these things are taken repeatedly and practiced. That these are the reasons. Then I explained to you, apart from cost of equity, cost of retained earnings. Cost of these I asked you to explain and post it in my group. They posted the private message. I'll once again check how many of you have done and not done. Then cost of retained earning were explained to you. This was also more of a philosophical in nature. Retained earning is your money. When it remains with the company, should you expect some return on this? It means should company pay something on it or not? It should, because if company is not paying anything on this, why should it remain with the company? It should be given to you so that you can earn something on it. So the basis of calculations where whatever you can earn, if company can pay you the same thing, you should have all the reasons to be satisfied and continue to stay with the company. Calculations were shown that KR would always be lesser than KE because most of the shareholders, majority of them, will pay taxes. And by way of paying taxes, the income in hand will be reduced. On that, they will earn less. Some people argue that in such a situation, company should not at all pay, but it is not correct because there are different types of shareholders. Some are in the tax bracket, some are not in the tax bracket, some need regular income, some need one-time income. Like this, there are considerations. Every shareholder has a different consideration. Therefore, there is no one-line answer. For that, only stock market exists. Those who want to buy for some reason, they can buy, and those who want to sell for some reason, they can sell. These were the considerations. Therefore, KR was calculated, its calculations were shown, and various other things were also explained with respect to KR. After explaining you the KR, weighted average cost of capital was explained to you. The rationale of weighted average cost of capital was also explained to you. Calculation is easy, but more than calculation are the interpretations of this one. All right. So this was explained to you. Then perhaps we should have explained to you the meaning of financial leverage, its calculations, and various implications of this. So what is there? Is it only a paper exercise? What is its use in the real life? To what extent can this be used? What people have been using? And then hypothesis was explained to you. After explaining the degree of financial leverage, hypothesis, this assumption, its calculations were explained to you. And then we came to an end to the discussion on fourth unit. Having explained to you all about cost of capital, if you are to invest, will you invest in equity or will you invest in debt? I'm not asking you to say this assumption, if this happens, that happens, whatever had to happen, you assume everything. And let me know what would be your decision. What would be your decision? Equity or debt?
Sir, equity.
Okay. Anyone else?
It depends on the risk-taking ability of. That depends on the risk-taking ability of investor.
What did I tell you a second before? It is your decision. So why do you say it depends on risk-taking ability? You know your personality very well. You know will you be able to take the risk or not, and how much you will be able to take. This analysis I cannot do. This you will be doing to analyze your behavior, analyze your personality, and then tell me, will you go for equity or debt?
Equity, sir.
Equity, sir.
Equity. Is there anyone in the class who will go for debt? There are Unfortunately, you all have lost interest in the classes. Only 42 of you are attending out of 120. In third unit, there were about 80, then it was reduced to 60, now it is only 40. I mean, I'll take a class even if there are two. Even if there is one, I'm paid for taking class, I'll take. If you do not want to get return of the money that you have invested, it is your choice. So, are there some students of Islamic banking also in this class? 1 or 2 or 3 out of 42?
Yes, sir.
IBF, there are students. IBF was the course of your choice, or because of some other reasons you landed into this course? What will be your decision, debt or equity? All right, no issue. What I'll do now, everything that I have asked you to do it, as soon as I get the time, I'll post these in the form of assignment, which you can submit. I'll give you enough time. Take your time and submit them. Third and fourth unit was to be covered by me, which I have covered. Tomorrow's class, Khalisa will start on unit number 5, dividend decisions. As soon as he completes 5th unit on dividend decisions, we will take a call who will deal with unit number 2, because 2nd unit is left. 1st unit Khalisa has done. 3rd and 4th I have done. 5th he will do. 3rd unit or 2nd unit on working capital management we will decide, and we will inform you. Either I will inform you or Khalisa will inform you. But tomorrow's class, as per timetable, will be taken by Khalid Saab. And if there is any change, he will make announcements, or he will. But we will be meeting either for revision or something once 5th unit is over, either for revision or for unit number 2 on working capital management. If you still have any question, kindly ask. If you don't have any question, we can close the meeting.
Thank you, sir.
So we may, just 1 second. Okay. All right, you can leave the meeting now.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks.